So the time has finally come for all of us who started Final Fantasy XIV to be making these videos about our 1 year long journey into FF14. And honestly, I was on the verge of just like going ahead and just recording this myself. But I saw this video on my timeline today, and honestly, Quasi's journey is one of the few ones that I've been following as a spread myself, and I just kind of got attached to the content, to the gameplay, and his takes on the game overall. That I thought that it would be good for me to just kind of sit back and turn this into a little bit of a discussion as well, and not just a one-sided dialogue from myself, because I'm actually dying to hear what someone who genuinely enjoys the game is feeling right now, and how it's similar or not similar to what I'm feeling. So let's go watch it.
1 year since I played Final Fantasy XIV. Time really flies, and for those who were here from the start, the scenes that you see on the screen right now will be very familiar, because these are the scenes from the early days of Potato Chan's playthrough of the MSQs. Back then, Potato Chan knew nothing about glamour. That's why she's looking so uncoordinated. She didn't even know what's the difference between a main scenario quest and a side quest. And hence why I did all these side quests at the start and became over-leveled. And I only stopped doing them until someone in the comment section told me not to. Thinking back to 1 year ago though, I remember before hitting the install button on the Final Fantasy XIV free.
Honestly, the game is so big, and honestly it does have these little bits of like unintuitive things that you just have to either get used to or discover yourself, or just have someone tell you not to do that. As someone who came from World of Warcraft as well as Quasi, we know that in order to level up, to be able to accept like another, I don't know, storyline quest or whatever, you can either queue for a dungeon on that level, or you can go across the zone and do bits of side quests that are available there. That's normally how you level. It's just in our mindset, which I discovered was very, very strange for most people who I also had in my chat. They were like, no, just don't do that. And I was I don't know, like some of the early game quests weren't as fun as I thought they might be, so I quickly stopped doing them as well. And I think only around Shadowbringers did they become a lot more engaging, and that's when I decided that I would clear all the side quests from all the zones as I'm leveling some of my other alt jobs, because the writing got so much better and the stories are actually so good. So if you haven't been doing any side quests, I highly recommend at least Endwalker and Shadowbringers, because those will make you cry.
Trial, I was no doubt asking myself, as someone who has played World of Warcraft for 10 years, who built my viewership based on World of Warcraft, I was no doubt asking myself whether this new journey will be worthwhile. And that is the purpose of this video. I'd like to talk about my reflections in the past 1 year.
Do you know how scary that is? To build an audience as an MMORPG content creator and then decide to switch, not knowing whether or not your audience will follow, because following doesn't just mean watching your content, it means them being invested enough to actually migrate their consciousness into another MMO, create a new character that they will connect and resonate with, buy the game, buy the subscription, and actually remain in the game so that they would stay interested in this content. I also felt this when I stopped playing WoW, but only last year that my channel on YouTube got partnered, and I was so excited. It was like January, and I started making money that I could actually live off in my country. And then from January to early June, I was still making World of Warcraft content, and I was sitting there watching my channel being run into the ground by all the World of Warcraft, drama, by Blizzard scandals, by all these things. And apart from the fact that I was drawn into Final Fantasy, because of some of the things that I saw, like mounts, like all these things that I could collect. Like, I've been stopping myself from playing it because I knew that I wouldn't have the time to play two MMOs at the same time. And I was also raiding with my guild at the time, who I didn't really want to abandon. So over time, I just realized that I am going to get to the point where I'm not even getting paid, on a monthly basis, because it got so bad that, you know, like on YouTube, like there's a threshold that you need to hit, like financial threshold, for you to even receive your monthly revenue from AdSense. And if you don't hit it, you're just not getting paid for that month. And it got to the point where I was pushing more content to just push me over the edge so that I would actually get that money on that month, so that I could like pay my bills and whatnot. Like I had a small channel, I couldn't get any sponsorships, nothing. And all of that combined just made me switch, even though I was afraid, even though I knew that, well, back then I think I had around 2K subs on YouTube, maybe. I knew that some of these people will not follow me, some of these people will not be interested, and I was just afraid of everything just, well, pretty much just going to shit. But the welcome that I received from the community, I still remember that first live stream that I had. That was one of the most wonderful experiences as someone who's trying a game for the first time. In WoW, I would average, like, I don't know, as someone who streamed on YouTube exclusively back then, I had, I don't know, by the end of like all this drama and scandals and stuff, I only have a few people. But suddenly, like when I started streaming FF, suddenly there was 10 people, 20 people, more people joining. It was for someone with a very small channel. It was a big experience and a big jump of people just being really excited about helping me out, and that was just, for me, that was just something really amazing.
And share some of the thoughts that I never really expressed, especially to the viewers who are here right from the start. Firstly, I'd like to talk about the challenges of switching over to Final Fantasy XIV. And I know some of you might immediately jump to conclusions to say, he must be complaining about the slow GCD, he must be complaining about maybe the slow pace of MSQs in A Realm Reborn, but that is actually far from the truth. Those things never bothered me. In fact, if you saw my earlier episodes, especially the first 5 episodes, you will see that I truly enjoyed A Realm Reborn. You know, I've heard a lot of people say that A Realm Reborn was not enjoyable for them, and sometimes I wonder to what extent were those views influenced by people who...
I never had a problem with A Realm Reborn, simply because when you start A Realm Reborn from scratch, you don't really know how good it is, let's say in Shadowbringers or whatever, and you just don't know any better. And the game was already engaging enough, and the hype was already big enough for me to be like, who am I to complain after like 5 or 10 or 20 levels or whatever? Like I don't know not anything about the game, and I should just keep playing until I actually experience the game for myself. And I normally, like, I think I have a very easygoing nature, which is probably really bad for a content creator. I don't complain a lot. Like, it takes a lot for me to get pissed off to the point where I'll make a video complaining about a game or whatever. And Final Fantasy was just not doing it to me. Like, I didn't like jump in straight away looking for, I don't know, things that I didn't like or whatever. After WoW, all I wanted was to just log into the game and just have fun, and that's what I got out of the game. So Realm Reborn was never really bad for me. It was, if anything, it was healing.
Really setting up them to feel that way. Because before they started A Realm Reborn, maybe some of their friends were already telling them, well, A Realm Reborn will be slow, but hang in there because Heavensward will be great. I didn't have any of those influence. I came over with no friends. No one knew I was playing Final Fantasy XIV. So every decision about the game, every perception of the game, every verdict I make about the game is solely down to me. And I truly enjoyed A Realm Reborn. And you might ask, well, then what's the challenge for you to switch over then? So let me explain. Now, for the people who know me on this channel, you know I don't really care too much about hateful comments or spiteful comments. And that is generally true. But when I switched over from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV, no doubt that is the time of my life where I got the most amount of hate, the most amount of negative
Such bravery. As you come back to the game, you'll be able to restore them by 1 every week. Congratulations. Long before I restore my characters after deleting the video. I don't think you can even restore your character after fully deleting it. My account on leaving WoW clips is pretty much clicked. Oh, come on. People are horrible.
It was in the YouTube comments, it's in Reddit, and you can see it all over the screen right now. There were a good number of World of Warcraft followers who felt betrayed by me playing Final Fantasy XIV, and they felt that I was just one of those other people jumping on the band
Well, okay, he Quasi admittedly had a much bigger audience of World of Warcraft players at the time than myself, so that's hardly ever really comparable in that sense. But so I never personally faced these things because no one really cared. I got maybe a couple of comments, but it was nothing to really worry about or reflect on. And honestly, I just knew I was done with the game and that's that. And I just wanted something else. And no amount of hateful YouTube trolls could get me to play the game that I don't want to be playing.
Bandwagon to play Final Fantasy XIV. Even though if you look at the date at which I started Final Fantasy XIV, I actually played FF14 before a lot of the large content creators like Asmongold did. I remember receiving a lot of snarky comments like, he will be back for Season 2, Season 3 and now Season 4 for Mythic Plus. But Season 4 is on the PTR and I still haven't had the motivation to even go near World of Warcraft. Naturally, I didn't let those comments affect me personally, but it definitely didn't feel good just receiving negative vibes all day. And I definitely tried to see it from their point of view as well. I was maintaining weak auras for every single spec in class in World of Warcraft. I was maintaining my own UI and my own plater profile that people were using in Mythic Plus. And naturally, people felt betrayed and threatened that those might no longer be available, even though I still keep them free on my website right now, though they might be outdated. And so there's a certain part of me that understands their frustration of me swapping over, and I would say I'm not surprised by the reaction either. I definitely anticipated receiving negative comments calling me a bandwagoner, someone jumping on the hate train because it was cool to hate on Blizzard back then due to all the lawsuits they were receiving. But actually, make no mistake, it is actually painful to see a game that you love so much go into the gutters, because that's a game that I had so many great memories.
It's like I often like to draw these parallels, like in which way MMOs are like relationships and in which way they are not. If you start playing an MMORPG, and if this is something that you dedicate most of your time with, that is no longer like relationship. That is pretty much you marrying yourself to the game in that sense. And when you get married, obviously you don't want your marriage to fall apart. No one wants that. And no one is in that relationship hoping that it would last or that their partner would turn toxic or this way or that way. So, I mean, saying that we as content creators were gloating over what was happening in World of Warcraft, for those of us who left years in World of Warcraft, that is just kind of sad because I mean we all loved the game for what it used to be.
Memories of, and it pains me to see that Blizzard has been neglecting the game for the longest time. Gone were the glory days, and I miss those days of staying up late with my friends, just hanging out in Azeroth. But just like how good and evil exist in this world, alongside the haters were also very supportive World of Warcraft fans who were sad to see me go, but they wished me well, and some of them even followed me into Final Fantasy XIV. And to those people who kept in touch, I have immense gratitude for you. Your support means everything to me during that time of uncertainty. And I'm sure some of you will have the question right now, which is, if you knew you would face so much pushbacks, if you knew that you would face so much negative criticisms, why did you even bother to switch from a game that you have already built a followership to a new game that you know is the exact arch nemesis and rival of World of Warcraft? Don't you know you risk angering most of your fans?
I mean, calling it, arch nemesis or rival or whatever, like I think it's pushing it a little bit. Like I wish it would be seen as an alternative, more as a wow killer or whatever. Just like I like to say this to all of my partners ever, whenever I have these discussions, and this is where I can like draw another parallel between like the games and relationships being kind of similar. I strongly believe that even in relationships, people don't just find someone else. Like the third person is not the person who will, at least in my case, be the reason why a relationship falls apart. The relationship falls apart internally first, and then only then it can fall apart even more so if people just if people just kind of get estranged, and that's just how things go.
And the honest answer is yes, I knew that. And it was a scary decision. But hey, life is full of scary decisions too. If there's anything I learned about life is that sometimes we tend to overthink matters, and at times you gotta go with your gut. and my gut told me to at least try out the Final Fantasy XIV free trial because it didn't cost a single cent. Not only that, if I didn't enjoy the trial, I can simply stop there. So to me, there was nothing to lose, and there's already so much frustration in creating content for World of Warcraft and playing World of Warcraft that I thought, hey, there's no harm, there's no downside in trying, only upside. And as they would say, the rest is history.
Even creating content that you want to create in World of Warcraft, or back then that you wanted to create, was really a frustrating experience. Like, I would create videos that I was actually passionate about. Like, I would go on mount hunts and whatnot, and I would revamp some of the old collectibles and make fresh guides for them. But like, just the amount of anger that I would face even in those comments, like by that community, like you could tell that they are not angry at my guide, or that they're not angry at the game system making the mount almost impossible to get. But there was like like all of this anger and frustration and resentment was just kind of pouring out, and I felt anxiety every time I would publish a video, because I knew that no matter how good the video is, that it would just get a ton of negative comments for no reason. And I just didn't want to be a part of a very unhappy community anymore. It just wasn't healthy for me, and I wanted to leave.
The second thing I'd like to talk about is the impact this 1 year had on me as a person, and how my daily life has basically changed since I started playing Final Fantasy XIV. For one, I'm a lot more relaxed, there's less tension in my shoulders, and everyone tells me that. When I was raid leading in World of Warcraft before I quit, I would go out on dates with the wife, and she'll be talking to me, and I'll be looking at her, and while I can hear the words she's saying, there's some part of my brain that will be processing on the back end, like, what is the raid roster I will bring to World of Warcraft tonight? Maybe I need one more healer for this boss. Or if I add one more healer, I might not meet the DPS checks, and I was just doing all these mental...
I'm not saying that in Final Fantasy you don't have to do these things. I've never raid led, not in Final Fantasy, not in World of Warcraft. Like, I think that there is an amount of management that you have to do in like whichever game you're raiding. But WoW, like as someone who has raided Mythic as a non-raid leader, as just a DPS, it is a completely different ball game.
Gymnastics in my head, and I was just not being present with her. She never really complained about it, and that's a great thing about my wife. But deep down, I knew that I wasn't giving her my 100% attention. Yes, I would reply to her, but I wasn't actively listening with 100% focus. You see, World of Warcraft is designed to be the only game that you play, the sole thing that you obsess about, the thing that you're afraid to neglect. And a certain part of my life when, I was way younger, I did not have any commitment or responsibilities, that might have made sense. Not to mention the game was actually helmed by really great developers back then who cared about the game and were passionate about the world. So back then it kind of made sense for me. But as I grew older and I had more responsibilities as an adult, not to mention Blizzard seems to care less and less about the game, suddenly that trade-off doesn't seem to make sense anymore. Final Fantasy XIV, on the other hand, is designed to be one of the many games that you are playing. And I've said this in many videos.
Do you know what? Like, I didn't used to realize this until I faced the first, I'm gonna call it content drought in Final Fantasy XIV. Like, I approached it with a mindset like, okay, I finished my Endwalker MSQ, and do mind, I was playing during a content drought. That was at the end of Shadowbringers, where most people weren't even playing, but for me, everything was just filled with MSQ. So I was streaming and playing while everyone else was pretty much just getting ready for Endwalker. And after the Endwalker MSQ and that first like patch with like raids and whatnot, it went really quiet, and for a while I just felt this, it's not desperation, but it was something that I faced for the first time as a content creator. Before World of Warcraft, I used to do Hearthstone, which is kind of an endless game. You have you have your ladder that you do every month, and there's no such thing as a downtime. Yes, there's downtime before the expansion, of course, but every month there's something new to do. So there was always like streaming material, and it was a lot less static than streaming during content droughts in World of Warcraft or in Final Fantasy. And then once I realized that my streaming hours have reduced themselves to me doing side content, like actual side quests or leveling roulettes or something like that, once I've caught up with all the side content. Not that that content is bad, but you have to just kind of realize that, you know, as content creators, like we have like we live off of this, and if this is something that people don't want to watch or are not fully interested in, especially during content droughts, you're kind of, you know, sitting there just contemplating your choices, and you're like, do I continue doing this, or do I play other games? You know, for me, that was the first time that I even decided to start playing any other games whatsoever, because WoW suddenly wasn't taking all my time, and this other MMORPG isn't taking all my time, and it is leaving plenty of time for me to do something else. So I recently started playing all of the other Final Fantasy games, and I even created another YouTube channel where I do that, and I'm having a blast, even though the channel is not currently monetized, even though, you know, I'm just like, technically it's not, um I don't want to say it's not useful. Of course it's useful, like it is promotion of content in a way, but I'm having fun. I don't really care that I'm yet to monetize that channel, that I'm not doing content on my main channel where I only do Final Fantasy 14. I'm just having a good time, and I'm experiencing everything else and not just my MMORPG, and it just feels so good.
Yoshi P, the lead developer, actually encourages people to play other games, to let their subscriptions lapse if there's nothing else they want to do in the game, to take a break from the game. The great thing about this game is that I no longer have the fear of missing out on anything at all. I know I can go on overseas trips for weeks and still come back to the game and not miss anything at all. I mean, case in point, this year I've been to 3 countries in just 2 months. And every time I come back to Final Fantasy XIV and log into the game, Potato-chan is right there where I left her, and all is right with the world. It's as though I never left at all. Contrast this to World of Warcraft, where if I left my character alone for weeks, I know I'll be way behind on personal power level and I needed to play catch up. You know, I even used to obsess about bringing a gaming laptop with me for vacations, for family vacations, and I'll make sure I'll log in on my gaming laptop, even with the very high latency, just to do my dailies in World of Warcraft, just to make sure I keep up with my power levels. And you might say, yeah, you're obsessed, you don't have to do that. And that's true, maybe I was obsessed.
But if that's your job, if you're a content creator, and if something that you do for a living depends on your logging in, yes, you're gonna log in. It's just the nature of the job that you've chosen, as in the game you're currently maining and creating content for. And that's just a sad thing about WoW. It's like, if you want to create for content for WoW on a high level, you just have to be there at all times.
Saying is that there's a treadmill in the game that required me to constantly be on. And to be liberated from the hamster ball and that treadmill when I switched over to Final Fantasy XIV is a huge sigh of relief. As cheesy as it sounds, I'm more calm, I'm more composed, I'm less stressed about my gaming habits, I sleep better and I have better quality of life outside of gaming. It's been a huge uplift to my personal life. Speaking about personal versus gaming life, I've also diversified in terms of the games I've played. A lot of people didn't believe me that I didn't play classics like God of War, like Stardew Valley, and thanks to Final Fantasy XIV, I'm able to go back and play all these wonderful titles. But being away from Final Fantasy XIV doesn't mean I care anything less about FF14. In fact, even when I'm taking breaks from the game, I'm constantly looking out for new information, when the new patches will drop, what new features we might see, and all the developer interviews that Yoshi P and team is giving. Why? I guess I just find it fascinating to follow this community and to follow where this game is headed, because the game itself has given me so much joy. And that brings me to my third point, the game itself. Man, this is 1 year of playing Final Fantasy XIV. I don't even know where to start. For a lot of you veterans who play Final Fantasy XIV, some of you playing this right from beta, from 1.0, maybe you have played the game day in and day out for so many years. Maybe you have played this game so much that everything in Eorzea has become mundane to you. But I will always remember the very first time I logged into Eorzea. I found the world to be stunning. It was an unknown...
It's just such an incredible experience. I actually, the first character that I made, that I later on decided that I wouldn't be playing, it started me off in Gridania, and I remember just feeling so welcomed by this forest and this music and this atmosphere and people running around and so many sprouts that made me feel like I'm not alone in this experience. I actually started playing a little before I think Asmongold started playing, so it was maybe a month before that. I'm mainly started, well, I was pushed over the edge because at the time I was watching some of Bellular's content where he was praising the game a lot, and I just, like being a little bit influenced, I guess, by the things that I was seeing on social media, I just kind of decided to, to start playing the game and to not delay it any further. I remember just how warm it felt, and seeing my character for the first time and her face expressions as she was be going through these quests and dialogues just made me just instantly resonate and immerse myself. It's just something that can't be described.
Place, a magical place. There were so many sights and sounds and weird creatures to see. There were cactuar mobs that would sleep at night and only move in the day. There were spree guns which I called scary rabbits because I didn't know what to call them at the start. And what tied everything together is just the amazing musical score that is in Final Fantasy XIV. Uematsu at the early parts of the title, eventually Soken taking over the reins. The musical score has been one consistent great experience throughout my Final Fantasy XIV journey. It's no surprise that my Spotify playlist right now has Final Fantasy XIV tracks as the most played amongst my playlist. In fact, every time I'm on a plane, I listen to my Final Fantasy XIV playlist because it's what puts me in a comfortable mood, it is what gets me to relax and to help me fall asleep. Every facet of the game is just crafted with so much love. And the main story, how do I even summarize that into words? And all I can say is that I've never been one to cry when playing video games, but I've shed tears so many times just playing through the story. In the face of a great storyline, in the face of great scripting, great music.
Not trying to say that that Final Fantasy XIV's story is in any way less impressive than what people make it out to be. I love the story, and I think I don't know, as I was playing through it, I realized that the game can wake up so many emotions in you and can get you to think about so many things you have in your life, so many things that you've lost. It was just such an amazing experience. But then as I started playing other Final Fantasy games as well, I realized that these moments are not just unique for Final Fantasy XIV. And I'm actually just so happy to be on this journey of playing through all of them. Hopefully by this time next year, I will have played through most of them, if not all of them. But I'm just happy that the Final Fantasy universe as a whole can make you feel this way. And Final Fantasy XIV is one of the most special journeys in game that I've ever felt. The only game that actually made me, I don't know, feel like this and like jump out of my seat and be, I don't know, be so excited about it. I don't know, like the only game that I remember making me feel that way is probably like the Harry Potter like 1 and 2 series back when they came out, when I absolutely had to go through them and had to play them. And I know it sounds a bit silly, and I recently actually started playing Harry Potter 1 again, and I couldn't finish the game because it was just such a different experience from the games that we get today. The movement is like, is so unoptimized. I don't even know how I played it on PC. It's just so clunky, and back in the day it was all we had and it was all so good. But I remember these feelings as a kid where I was actually just genuinely so in love with the game, and now I get to feel that again, and that is, for me, that is just so amazing.
Musical scores and great art directions, those come naturally and they pour out naturally out of your being. And to avoid spoilers, I'll be vague here, but yes, I still pull up those moments, including that very iconic moment in Heaven's Ward's post patches, the first time I ever cried for Final Fantasy XIV, as well as a certain point in Shadowbringers that I'm sure many of you can remember. And in a lot of ways, the story has also inspired me to be a better person. Sounds cheesy, but that's what great storytelling does for you. It allows you to relate to it and to find your own path forward. You know, the story of A Realm Reborn all the way to Endwalker, a large part of it is mirrored in the Warrior of Light's triumph over obstacles and difficulties. And whenever I hear tracks from Soken, I always recall that he was crafting a lot of the scores and the soundtracks for Shadowbringer when he was fighting cancer and doing chemotherapy. And seeing him energetic and back to his usual self nowadays, it reminds me I have so much to learn from him. It always serves as a constant reminder that we as individuals in real life is also able to overcome our difficulties similar to the Warrior of Light, if only.
That was, for me, that was so incredible and so amazing to see. And when I first saw that video, like my own personal healing was still fresh because I lost my grandma to cancer not long ago, and it was very difficult to hear another such story of a genuinely just good person, amazing content creator, to just suffer through something like that. But I was so happy to hear that he's managed to defeat that horrible illness and just, you know, come back to us and create this wonderful music.
We persevere and we have the right mentality. Not just Soken, look at Yoshi P. Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 was an abject failure, and Yoshi P pulled off a miracle to make it the success it is today. Again, these are real life stories that parallels what the story is trying to say in Final Fantasy XIV. That against the toughest odds, even when no one believes in you, there's always a path out, that at the end of the day, your journey will be worthwhile. And I think it's this positive and reaffirming experience, this path that we have all walked through the story together, that forms an invisible bond amongst the Final Fantasy XIV community. And it's very hard to explain, it's very hard to put it into words, but that's the best I can position it. This is not a video that's supposed to review Final Fantasy XIV as a game, but I can tell you every facet of the game, be it Savage Raiding, be it Ultimate Raids that I've both done, be it the intricate glamour system, or the insanely detailed and well-crafted world and environment, the minions you can collect in the game, or the love the development team have for the franchise, the players that you meet in the game, they all have made my 1 year in Final Fantasy XIV truly memorable. And as a very famous person once asked us, was your journey truly worthwhile? And I must say, without any regrets at all, my 1 year in Eorzean was worth.
That just makes you want to cry. Like you hear that, and like if you play through it, you instantly you see the scene and
worthwhile and probably one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. It is absolutely crazy to think that it's only been 1 year. Sometimes I feel like I've been playing this game for ages. You know how some people say the intensity of emotions is able to sometimes distort your perception of time? I think that's what happened to me. Going through the launch of Endwalker with everyone, feeling those intense emotions when it comes to the story, I've definitely caused myself to buy into time dilation. It's been truly an amazing 1 year in Eorzean, and I'd also like to take this chance to thank each and every one of you for being part of my journey. I might not have time to reply to every single comment, but trust me, I read all of them, and I'm really grateful to hear from each and every one of you every step of the way. I do not know what the future holds, but I'm sure the future for Final Fantasy XIV is bright. The roadmap for Endwalker looks exciting. I can't wait for 7.0. So here's to many more years of Final Fantasy XIV together. For those of you who like the content on this channel, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. You can do so by clicking on the button in the middle of the screen. I will continue to do my best in bringing you the best coverage for FF14. Thanks for watching a video that is unlike my usual style and format. I hope you enjoyed the 1 year together. A big shout out to my Patreon subscribers. Thanks for keeping the channel alive. And last but not least, a big thank you to you for watching the video. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.
good video. Is there anything really that
Yo, where did Gaius go?
that he missed out on saying? I don't think so. I wanna see some of the comments. Let me see. Okay, okay. Oh no, I'm actually looking at the wrong video. I was like, what the hell are these comments? Lands that stretch on forever, skies that one could drown in, the heartbeat of nature, silent yet strong in the midst of all people, beacons of light and life. The FF14 community is made better with someone as positive and motivating as you and I. Quasi, thank you so much for giving 14 a shot and becoming so immersed in it. Has your journey been good? Has it been worthwhile? Did you find fulfillment? Oh my god, the chills. Glad to have watched the whole 14 journey from the start. Like, his journey has really been amazing, and I'm just very happy to have been a part of it. I wasn't I wasn't a part of it as much during his World of Warcraft days, but honestly, while I was playing WoW, not only did I not have time to play other games, I also didn't follow as many of the WoW content creators because with the daily life of everything going on, being a parent, doing school and work and everything, it just wasn't a thing. And I'm just happy and grateful that I get to actually sit down and enjoy other people's journeys as well, knowing that I'm not missing out on my own personal one.